So, oh, it's Madison. It says screen sharing is not allowed. Can you see my screen? Hey, can anyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can
Oh.
now, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh man, look at that
Oh,
picture.
cool.
Wow, look at that guy.
Wow.
There you go. Look at Vince.
Nice hair.
What is this? What am I looking at?
That's
It's like
a
internal
marketing
or?
piece that
Everybody
our
got one.
marketing department gave. When you got started with the company, they would, they'd put together all kinds of stuff to float out to your market. And so this is like a little profile. You'd hand that out to brokers and people, and you look important. And
So
Uh-huh.
it wasn't actually volume one, number one. This is just a marketing gimmick.
it's a marketing gimmick, yeah. It was part of we had like a room. I don't know if we're live. Are we actually broadcasting right now? But we had like a room in our
We're live.
in our executive suite with all the flyers, and there was like one for marketing to veterinarians, another one for dentists, and it was just like the whole table, and there was like a stack of them, and this was just one of the stacks. Okay, but that you had one for every industry that we specialized in, and that marketing department would just kick out stuff that was so professional. It was great.
There was no real internet then, so you either brought them to a trade show, you handed them out at a lunch and learn. Money Store was very aggressive as to providing promotional materials. The broker lender card, you guys remember that? Where you take a listing or someone puts, the broker puts a listing on it, have the Money Store sign, and you have the cards that went out that had the broker and us on it to help sell. They were creative, man.
So
No
it
doubt.
says that turnaround times. So even in the 90s, turnaround times were crucial.
Yeah, but I'll tell you
some
something.
Things don't change.
No, I'll tell you, Ray, and these guys I think can attest to it. It seemed like people had more patience back then. And I say patience as in, when you tell someone 30 days or 45 days today, I think if it's not a week, you're getting pushback. I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
your patience level or maybe your expectation level from our client base in today's world, and maybe it goes back to what one of you, Vince or Joe, one of you said last week, just people have, John, maybe people have so much more information, they expect more so much faster. And so even though turnaround times were crucial, I think there was a little bit of forgiveness maybe in some of that just because of what the product was. So
yeah, I was going to say if you remember though, in the 90s, we were coming off of a generation of bankers dealing with the SBA, and it was a much slower process. So that was probably one of the biggest scary things for the brokers, was like, this thing, we hear it's going to take months. It wasn't about the term. They just want to know that it wasn't going to take months. Now it's condensed to a much shorter time frame. And so maybe terms become more important. But back then, that was a big deal because, and there was some truth to those. People had horror stories, about how long it would take to get the deal done. So I think that was a big reason on why that was promoted as such an important element of the process.
I think it's so interesting that the article is written very similarly to how I would write an article today. Here it talks about what sets us apart from the competition is our service and the value we place on the customer. That's like that's how I sell today. I think that's fascinating. But to your point, the Amazon effect has, set in, and there definitely is a different perception on how quickly things should be happening.
Right.
Well, everybody's gotten better at it, right? The level of service from all the lenders has, everybody's pushing everybody to do better service. So the expectation is now much more than it is. It's like, well, that's a given now. You're supposed to be quick.
Right.
That's not that shouldn't be an asset. That should be a prerequisite.
Baseline.
Kind of an expectation, yeah.
Right. So this product here, Ray, This was our conventional product that we came out with that every banker in Houston, Texas hated. Oh my God.
Yeah. Well,
They
how do
would
you even
see
do
that.
this? How do you even do this?
I don't, John, you want to handle that? You probably understand how they pulled that off. Can you
Yeah,
explain?
so I'm happy to try to tackle it. I don't know whether it's 100% accurate, but I'm going to try to recount from my memory. But Ray, what was happening is that as we said kind of last week, a lot of what we were using the SBA program for, and we were out marketing, was for owner-occupied real estate. And so the money store had gotten really, really comfortable doing 90% plus in owner-occupied 7A loans. And what they were doing is we were selling into a market back then where I will tell you the premiums were incredible. I mean, I remember back in the day, yeah, we were selling the 7A, we were selling the guaranteed portion, and this before we had to split. We were getting 118, 119, and I'm not exaggerating.
Okay.
It's remarkable. And so what happened is, and then what then Money Store, and I believe they were also selling off the unguaranteed piece. This is kind of back in the day, and I'm getting probably all my time periods blended. But this is back in the day when also there were banks buying and selling unguaranteed portions. So with Money Store being able to take a 7A loan, sell the 75% portion off, they were then taking portions of the unguaranteed piece and tranching them and securitizing and selling them. They just did that with the conventional piece, and they just went a little bit deeper. And so they just tranched off the risk and were able to get to full leverage. Not going to lie. I mean, obviously with 100% financing, you weren't doing projection-based loans at 100% financing. I mean, these were deals that had covered 125, 135 for a couple of years plus an interim. You had to have good coverage. You had to have good borrower had to have good credit. So there were certain parameters. They had to have a better quality. But I mean, they were, and I remember last time this was a pioneering product, and it was really interesting when Money Store was acquired. That product went away, but then many lenders. A lot of us even today, now SBA doesn't have any required injection on it. When we were out taking that we had done really, really well, and we're out trying to market it with SBA, I will tell you, there was a lot of rhetoric and a lot of kerfuffle about that. I'm not going to lie. We went through it because we were out, Vince, Joe and Sam, I don't know if you all were out marketing and doing 100% 7A, but there were some within the community and the industry, and I'm not going to name names, who were really critical. And they came out and they were criticizing some of the marketing on it. And at the end of the day, it was, I understand the why behind it, but it ended up becoming a really, really great product for our small business clients. And, even today, I think that, you ask some lenders, a lot of lenders out there are comfortable doing 100% owner-occupied commercial real estate financing. I think what's happened is that 100% financing that Money Store pioneered, quite frankly, had some had taken some liberty with it and probably stretched on the risk spectrum.
So I want to mention so that article that you're having the screen, Ray, that's a testament to our credit department, who is underrated, so underrated, because we were not. I mean, there was this perception that we were throwing junk on the books.
I was going to ask that. That's
totally not who we were.
It's not the
we
case.
Didn't throw junk on the books. It was good quality stuff. Okay. The 100% financing thing, in retrospect, it was brilliant because it was just another way for us to distinguish ourselves and use that marketing to get your foot in the door. We still really wanted to do the SBA 7A. It was just like that marketing piece. That was a new conversation you can have. You can have a new conversation with the same people, and that's going to set you apart from the rest of the people that all of a sudden got into the game. This was the Money Store evolving and trying to figure out another marketing approach to get in there and win the business.
Yeah. By the way, Lisa Forrest says hello, and that Mike Duckham says hello.
Awesome. All right.
Oh, cool. Are they joining?
Yeah.
Are they?
No, they are not. They tried to move some stuff around, but Lisa could not make it. But, and I guess you guys know they are married.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So that was like a Money Store love. So I wanted her to come here and tell that story, but she couldn't make it.
They're just out closing more deals as usual, I'm sure.
Absolutely. I know we've had the episode up for about a day so far, and a couple hundred people have watched it and listened to it. Have you guys heard any early feedback yet?
Oh yeah, I have. I've had several people. Go ahead. Sorry.
No.
Yeah, no, I've had some really good positive feedback from folks that are that have seen it and called. You know, obviously about the just the whole process of what we talked through, what we talked about, and you know, people have been very positive about it. And Ray, in particular, complimentary of you and you know what's going on with you in the SBA world. So it's been very positive for us, I think.
I've had some good results, some good comments too from people I've known forever and a day. Brought back some memories from those that were money store competitors and at the same time in the game. It makes you trigger a memory and makes you think back how it was back then, and how we did that business without the internet, just face to face, nose to nose, toes to toes, direct mail, different animal. Different
Oh,
animal.
I mean, I remember sitting in the executive suite, and I think then maybe we had Lotus. What was it, Lotus 123 or Lotus Notes?
Yeah,
Notice
That
how-
we were using, yeah. It was this old archaic dial-up system with email, and it was brutal. And you know, we joke about it, and I will tell you this: one of the funniest things I'll say is that the airport, the Louisville airport's about 15 minutes from my house, and I remember, you know, realizing that you had to get there by about 11 o'clock or 11:30 in order to get the package sent from Louisville out to Sacramento in time. And so there would be days and nights that I would be spending Xeroxing and copying and reviewing packages and making sure the I's were dotted, the T's were crossed. And this form had everything filled out because I will tell you, you know, Ray, it was such a nice surprise bringing Raffield on, but literally, and I don't know if shops do this now. We don't, although I've considered it. You know, setting up a screening process where you would just get deals kicked back, or they would just not even assign them. So the fact of the matter is, it was very clear what the expectation was, and that's why it was also so hard because the technology, you couldn't scan a document and redo it. You had to overnight it, so you knew that you were 2 to 3 days out if you didn't get it right. And then the communication back and forth, things didn't move as quickly. And so it was a much more regimented process with limited flexibility. And you as a BDO, you knew what you had to do. And the ones that were successful were able to manage and juggle all of them at the same time and get the packages in. But no, I mean, I'm going to tell you, it was a regular occurrence that during the week I was driving to the airport at 11 o'clock trying to meet FedEx or UPS. Sam, agree?
When I was watching
Absolutely.
When I was watching the episode back, my favorite part was when Mark Raffield came on, and I was able to see your guys' faces now when I was watching it back, and to see four grown men, you know, CEOs and presidents just start shaking in their boots, afraid like this guy's going to
There was a bit of a panic. It was like
wondering if he's going to kick something out today, right?
And then 2 days after he becomes a BDO, he goes to the other side. So,
totally.
He becomes a hypocrite at that juncture.
Yeah, totally. That's right.
So,
that's funny.
Ray, on your question,
funny enough, a couple things I'll say is just thinking back on this, and I wanted to make a couple comments. One, Vince, you're 100% right. I mean, that credit department was incredible. Not only were they well trained, they hired really talented people. Many of the folks within the credit department ended up going to work for the SBA and took leadership positions within the SBA, respectively. Right. So, had a chance to work with them even after they left the money store. The other thing that I just wanted to make a comment about, and I probably was not effusive enough. Sue Glass, that's cool. Hi, Sue. Probably not effusive enough.
You here?
The marketing department was, I mean, they were huge, and they were so incredibly talented. And, when I joined, I can't remember, maybe it was Bill Miller at first, but then Trevor Cartwright became the head of marketing. And Trevor did not come from lending. He came from outside. He had his own firm, and they brought him in to leave. I think at the time he had a partner, and he came in and they had a bunch of sales reps. And so, you can imagine this as like a BDO. We had our own sales, we had our own marketing rep that we worked with to develop our own specific market and our own channels for delivering the product and communicating and educating. And I will tell you, I mean, now, you've got maybe a part-time marketing person if you're lucky, and many shops don't have the marketing people. There they had, for 410 or 425 employees, as many as we were, I got to tell you, the marketing department was 10, 15 people, maybe. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't that big. But what I'm trying to say is that this was an organization, and I know that I spoke a lot at it, that it was genius. They were genius. They knew exactly how to penetrate the market. Sure, they made some mistakes, but Money Store truly set the stage for the industry. And I mean, 16 years, that's a dynasty. And they continue to do it really, really well with consistency. And I think, and I know that I continue to go on, but I learned so much in my years there. I am the type of SBA lender today because of my 5 years at the money store.
All right, trivia question for everybody. Ray, you're not going to know this. What was the name of the software program that we used to keep track of our contacts?
Lois.
Nope. That might have been that. No, that wasn't the one I remember. ACT.
What was it called?
Yeah.
Yes.
Act.
Yes.
Yeah, Act. Yeah.
ACT was the program.
Oh,
And every
contact
month
management
you would have to update your database and send
That's
it to
right.
marketing, and they'd send out
Yeah.
those tombstones for you. But you had to make sure you had all the information in there.
Yeah.
And that was ACT, and that was a great program.
That was George Jetson stuff at that time, and now it's more like Fred Flintstone if you think back to it. There's so
Right.
many different things going
That's a
on.
great way to put it, Joe.
But was the system that we used for processing the loans, was that called Lois? Where did I get
I
that
don't
from?
remember
No.
that one.
Okay.
No, we had a
Oh,
proprietary system. It was a proprietary system that we created. I don't know who at the money store did it, but it was ours. It was pretty efficient. I would tell you it rivals some of the stuff I've seen today.
Oh,
When you
Jackie
guys started
Bogdan says it's Lois.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought there was a loan operating information system or whatever, and maybe it was something internally that was used at SAC at the Ziggurat once we all moved. I don't remember, but something in the back of my mind.
The money store management information system, something like that. Team IS. It just something like that rings in my head, but it was pretty cool.
So when you guys started up, like when I got going, and it was end of 96, beginning of 97, they sent me, like, this was really cool. So I did the 2-week training deal in Sacramento, and then I came back for a couple of weeks, and I was working with Ron Moore in Houston. I don't know if you remember Ron. He was great.
I do.
And then a couple of weeks after that, they sent me to Colorado, and I worked with Dan Rundgren and Steve Gardner, and Dan took me running at Garden of the Gods and killed me, but he was an awesome BDO, and I learned a lot, and that was really cool too, because they gave me, like, here I came from banking, nobody, there was no training on how to be a BDO, right, in the banking world, and so to go work with those guys in person. They took me on appointments, and for a young banker, that was a really cool experience, and I learned a lot. And I don't know if that's something that happens anymore. I don't know, Ray. What do you guys see in the training?
And that's the thing. I mean, all of this stuff has been skinny down over the years. I mean, there is no training. People just hire people that already know how to do it. And then they come and they do it the way they do it. That's what struck me hearing about this whole money store thing. I mean, you go through this training, you come out knowing the playbook, knowing what to do, knowing what you're selling. Now it's a free for all. It's just how can we get volume? It's like, all right, what were your numbers last year? Okay, you're hired, and then day one, you already have deals in the pipeline because you probably threw them over the fence before you even got there, and you're just kind of figuring it out as you go. New people coming in, I mean, you see what Shatterbox is doing. Obviously, they're having some success bringing some new people into the industry, and I think that was a great idea, because it's like the banks all slashed all their training programs before. By 2008 there was probably like hardly any, and now it's almost like it's a fractional training company where they put it all together, the top of the line stuff, and then there you go, free Shatterbox promo. I am an investor, full disclosure, and
Oh, there you go.
well, and John's a co-founder too, so that's there you go. So yeah, I guess he is a pretty smart guy. So there is what do we have here? We have these old articles from, I assume they're from newspapers, magazines, things like that were printed on paper. And this is, I guess, this guy you guys talk about, Mark Turtletop.
Mark, yeah, that's right.
And This is his art decorated headquarters. That's the Purple Palace we were referring to.
Zig, right? The ziggurat.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was just, yeah.
You guys just saved this stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I didn't have as much stuff. I mean, I didn't get to go through everything and send all the other stuff I had, but I wish I didn't have as much junk as I do, Ray. Quite frankly, I've got way too much. It would be nice if I ever had an opportunity to really go through and clean stuff out. Yeah, like that one right there. That one should have been done forever.
This one was, so we uploaded it now, so everyone can go watch this. This is the day in the life of the BDO, and I'm guessing this was like 1995 or something like that.
95-ish. That's about right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
So is this? Yeah. Is this accurate? Is this what a day, or was it like a satire? Like this is what people think it's the day.
This was no. So it was totally satire. It was the setup there in the office and everything clean and blank and all that kind of stuff was intentional. There was no my desk really didn't look like that. I mean, it was the whole point was to show quite frankly, and as has been said here many times, the group that the credit underwriters, the closers, the construction, all of our team was really, really good. We were all really close, but I think in the field, sometimes we felt like the perception was, business development guys didn't do anything but sit at the end and sit back and kind of wait for your check. So that was kind of the point that I was trying to get across, is that, we don't do anything. All we do is we got a clean desk. There's nothing here. There's no voicemails coming through for the day, and I'll go play golf and play cards. And so it's kind of the take on just obviously a slant at we really did work very hard, and our desk obviously never looked like
here.
that.
Let's back. It looks good.
It was only that easy.
Yeah. It just drops in, and Tom Pugh, who I referenced there, Tom was our he was an underwriting manager, credit manager. I don't know if y'all remember him or not, but yeah. So Ray, it wasn't really the way it was.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the gatekeeping thing that we were talking about is just hilarious. I mean, it's like, of course you're gonna gatekeep, and make sure you have complete packages, and it's just so funny that was considered like an innovative thing at the time to do that. It was my reality. So when I was at ReadyCap, they ran a pretty tight ship there, and it was very much the CIT folks who must have caught on, and brought that over to ReadyCap when I was there, because it was very much like, hey, every submission there was some sort of kickback for something. BDO Rookie of the Year, Sam Renta. So
yeah, look at that whopping volume.
As a rookie though, and I'm guessing that was probably 15 deals or something like that. A lot of deals.
Probably it was. Yeah, it was. It was quite impressive by today's standards, right? But the 5.6 million. Our average deal might have been. I mean, I don't remember. Maybe 400,000 or 500,000. Yeah. I mean, so probably right. Probably 15 deals, maybe.
So what were you doing to do that?
Honestly, I think everybody started out this conversation with, we were all real estate. I mean, everything that we did back at that time frame were real estate transactions. So when you got into this market, I think the guys at CCIM and the people that we started communicating with, and I had no background in this when I started either. So you went out and you developed the market. So Ray, what you were doing were really those high leverage, long-term real estate transactions that they were not able to get in the market. When they were going to the banks, if the banks were aggressive, they were doing probably 80% loans. They weren't even doing 85%, certainly not doing 90%. So the market had this, we had this product that allowed us to do high leverage, long-term loans, and the market ate it up. But it was all, I don't remember point until later down the road, really getting involved in the biz act world. And when I did, for me, it was more veterinary and dental type loans, not even the stuff we're seeing today.
I'll concur with what Sam says. For the first 13 or so years of my career in the SBA space, 7 with the money store, and then subsequently moving on to CIT, all I did was real estate. I didn't come up as a banker. I came up as a commercial real estate broker.
Yeah.
And that's all I did. And then
Mm.
someone had talked me into doing this job.
Yeah.
And it sounded interesting. And business
Bruce
acquisitions
Bodie.
became different.
Bruce Bodie says hello. He sent in his old, I guess, some paper that he has from the money store.
Wow. Great stuff.
How come Bruce isn't on here?
He said because he'd get fired, and he might get
Yeah,
fired
wow.
just from me saying that. He's at Wells Fargo.
Wow.
Yeah, no, he's at Wells now. Yeah, Bruce, by the way, was he's another not necessarily Mark Raffield-esh. Mark is in a world of his own in terms of the gatekeeper role there. But Bruce started out as an underwriter, and he was actually, I mean, he probably, I'm pretty sure he did one of those $5.6 million deals that I did, because he was an underwriter at that time. So
Okay.
he was, yeah, pretty solid.
One of the things, Ray, that we talked about last week was Money Store did a great job of keeping everybody on story, everybody on point. And it's like a high performance team. I referenced this in the last podcast. It's 11 men looking downfield, all with the same vision. We don't see that as much as we should be seeing that Money Store personnel all saw it the same way and all worked together to accomplish it. We set the stage. We were trained very well. We had follow-up, and we were trained from all aspects. We were trained from the BDO and the sales space. We were trained from the construction space. We were trained from the closing space, from the underwriting space. So we got good at what we did, and we became efficient at the process.
No one else is doing that right now. I mean, look at it, 16 years in a row. I mean, that's still the record, I believe.
Yeah. And in fairness to today's world, I think at that time frame, and I mentioned, CIT had set up an office back about the same time I opened, when I thought that I would be the only one on the block as far as non-banks. But really and truly, our only, in fairness to today's, young guys that are in this, our only real competition at that time were the banks. And all we had to do was really, as we had a good team, back room, everybody in the organization beyond the business development people were all very aggressive, very hardworking. Everybody was after the same goal, as Joe said. But we also did have, even though we didn't have the internet and we didn't have laptops that we do today, and my desk was clean or whatever, we did have an advantage of kind of being first to the market somewhat. I mean, we did have that opportunity. Not that we didn't take advantage of it, we certainly did, but we did have that opportunity there when the banks were not at CCIM, as Joe referenced last week, when the banks were not as aggressive as they are today, doing 85 and maybe sometimes more on a conventional loan. And so there was a different mentality. You had to overcome that prime plus variable rate. I mean, that was the hard sell. But once you got beyond, that, and they understood that long-term financing and that high leverage, it did make it somewhat, I don't want to say easy, but easier maybe. So we did. I mean, again, in fairness to what's going on today, because I do think that one of the things that's changed, and I actually spoke to Shem here this morning, I just think in today's world, when you've got what we had then and still today that I try to pride myself on are the local relationships and the people that we work with. And not that you don't have a relationship with someone that you're doing a loan for, 5 states away, and you don't develop that by phone. You certainly do. But when you're in a market like we were, and you can go to the CCI meetings and you were different than whatever else anybody what they had seen at the time, I think it did kind of give us a leg up to create those markets. And they did allow us to be entrepreneurs in our own way and in our own market. So anyway, I think that did help us a lot back at that time.
Yeah, Ray, let me and I'll tell you, Sam, I 100% agree with you. And like one of the things I think that it was a differentiating factor that back then for a lot of us is, they hired a lot, we said last time, a lot of young, bright, really passionate, aggressive folks, and they grew the sales team to like 110 people. And I know that at one point in time, and I do not know the years, but when I came on, and Sam and Joe and Vince, for you guys, I mean, SBA lending was known on the West Coast. SBA lending was known a little bit in the Northeast and maybe pockets of Texas and whatever, but from a national depth and breadth, no. So here you get hired, and all of a sudden you're out there pioneering, and you're out selling a brand new product. And you go into real estate brokers' offices, and you talk about SBA lending and 90% under occupied. And half the time they're like, we don't do that. Goodbye. We're not going to talk to you. And now everybody knows what SBA lending is. But what's remarkable, and what I was going to say is that, going back to the marketing, what Money Store was committed to doing is that if you did deals, it bred deals. Because what they did is through some of the signage and the marketing, and they also spent a lot of money in local business journals, not only marketing it, advertising, but also writing ghost articles for you. So could you imagine coming into a new market with a brand new product, having incentive to go drive volume, and you've got a marketing department behind you that's constantly, that your signs all over the city, you're in the paper either being quoted because you did a deal or a ghost article or printed every single week in Business First. And then on top of that, you're focusing on real estate, and you go talk to the real estate brokers, and they go, can you do this? You do this. And well, in addition to, if it's owner occupied, yes, because not only were we looking at a credit team that was helping you structure and navigate through some of those issues, but we also had a dedicated construction department. I mean, we stood up an entire construction department that would do ground up and multiple disbursement, and this is all on real estate, and they were based in SAC. So the same way that we were qualifying contractors and we were reviewing contracts, they were all doing that out in Sacramento at the time and delivering that to a service. So, I mean, Ray, imagine as a BDO, if you had all those tools at your disposal in leisure, not leisure, but at your disposal to be able to go drive your volume. It was, they were really, and that's why it was such a great organization with the resources and the talent and the people that they put behind you. They were really committed to you
at that point in the industry. That's the thing, because they were ahead of their time, because it's rarely do you see a first to market type of lender have the foresight to attack it that way. I'm guessing they had done that on other industries and had kind of stumbled upon SBA and said, hey, let's do it here. And really their run started in the 80s. So, but the 90s are where it really started getting hot. And you look at these rankings right here. I mean, this tells you the story. I mean, 1994, they had 5.55% of the market share. No one has that today. And they're quadruple the next person, which is GE Capital, which is also a famous historical, lender in the history books, followed by Banco Popular, AT&T Small Business. And then you see a lot of shifting. Now, Money Store is at the top, but everyone under it, you do see a little bit of jockeying, which I thought was interesting. 95, AT&T kind of comes up and doubles up there. And they're barely making any, progress to catch up to Money Store. But then by 96, it starts getting kind of crazy. All of a sudden, Money Store has 9% of the market share, which is unheard of today. And AT&T all of a sudden is doing some pretty big numbers. This is where we're seeing right now the years where this program absolutely exploded. Although it is interesting that it kind of remained flat every year, or maybe that's just the sum of the top. No, was it? And probably that's everyone. $7 billion a year program stayed flat. That's interesting. I wonder, were these non-banks kind of just taking market share away from the banks?
I don't think the banks were doing a whole lot. Yeah.
Not until the end of the decade. They started getting into it later in the decade.
Yeah.
Which is when, because I think what the banks started to see is like all of a sudden we're losing all this business. And it's actually what gravitated me away from the money store, because I started this, because the money store was now part of, Wachovia, and they were doing things more like a bank, but they weren't doing it the money store way that I was used to. And so the banks were, you had people. The guy that I went to work for a small community bank here in Houston, and it was run by an ex-CIT guy. So you know what I mean. And he knew how. So we worked together, and it was more like it was like kind of a hybrid, right? We had a little bit of a little non-bank within a bank, and it worked for a while, but it doesn't always last forever at banks. That's the challenge. It's trying to keep that culture, alive within a regular banking culture. That's a challenge to do, because we're different cats. We're different kinds of people. We market differently, and our product looks different. And so trying to kind of keep that, reconciled within a bank culture sometimes can be a challenge for SBA departments over time.
And I'm sure organizations still do this, but especially those that are sizable. But one of the things also is they created so much internal competition amongst, but it was a friendly competition. And, it was, and I think there's still a lot of that same camaraderie today in the SBA. Many of us are all friendly competitors, and we want, there's plenty of business to go around. But back then, I mean, every single month, not only within your own region where there are rankings and metrics, but also nationally. And it was a big deal. I mean, you took great pride if you could deliver some volume, especially out of some of these smaller markets. But there was no question. Where you stood locally, where you stood regionally, where you stood nationally. And I will tell you, once if you could make President's Club level at Money Store, I will tell you that was a big deal. And I think it was respected amongst everyone, because everybody knew the enormity, how hard that was getting to that level, regardless of what market and regardless of what vertical you were focused on.
Right. Yeah.
Very, very few lenders today have that type of scale where you have 100 BDOs in the field. I mean, there's probably maybe less than a handful that come to mind. Harvest has a lot of BDOs out there. Live Oak has a lot of BDOs out there. Huntington has a lot of BDOs out there. But notice 2 of the 3 people I just named are banks, which is kind of nuts. Who are these people? Is Sam? Is that you or?
That's me. I'm in there with the red cap, and then Greg Luterio down the bottom left there with the red sweater.
Yeah.
And then you got Tom Altieri to my left, kind of up there, and then the others. God, I'm losing. I should know the guy right there behind me, but I can't think of the name, and I apologize if you're listening. I can't remember all of them. But that was in Phoenix. We were at Tom's place there playing at the Arizona State golf course. So,
Sam, I don't know if you remember this or not, but when we were doing the hard promotional stuff, Altieri and his partner, I don't remember his name, they took out an ad and they put it on the cover of the real estate magazine for Arizona. It was a picture of Altieri holding up a bag of money.
I remember
the old style, and it was in a wheelbarrow. No smiles, just real serious. He said that his phone blew up and just about crashed his phone system. There were so many people reaching out to him because they weren't aware that you could do up to 100% financing, but they really pushed it hard, and you didn't have the internet back then. So these periodicals and promotional stuff was terrific. And we had the help of marketing put this stuff together. But that one ad that they put together was, I remember it to this day. It was really something.
He had
attention. Creative artwork, creative stuff.
Slick, very nice slick in that magazine. I do remember that.
Remember that?
And you're right. The periodicals, the business journals, we had ads going in. We all did, not just me here. We all did have ads going in every week, advertising whether it's the deal closed or the financing, the structure of a deal that we could do and that we could offer. And, it was just basically a little tombstone is all it was in the journal. It wasn't a whole lot, but they generated. The one thing we did do is I remember, and again, I'll go back to Dagmar, but Dagmar Smith, who was like our marketing person at the time. But anyway, the Birmingham News had a business section. It was relatively cheap, but they had a business section, and you could do an article in there, and you could buy basically a half-page article. And at the time, what we would do is, you'd go out and meet with, and we did a lot of these. I wish I could have dug some up and just couldn't find them, but we'd go out and, you'd get pictures with the client on the deal that you closed, kind of like we do today. Everybody does this, testimonial. And then there'll be a nice article. But what was nice about it, everybody back at that time, Saturday morning, Sunday morning, I did. I'm sure all you guys on this phone call, other than Ray did, is we go out and you pick up the paper and you go inside and you're reading it and you're drinking your cup of coffee. It wasn't your phone that you were reading all this stuff on. We were reading it on a newspaper with the gray ink on your fingers. So, but it was great because it was a half page, and that kind of stuff did generate it. If it didn't generate deals, it generated buzz, and buzz certainly helped a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I alluded to this when we were doing it last time. But, I think that one of the other things when I think about the market, and I think about kind of where we lend money today versus when we were a money store BDO, it was a lot more local focused. And you met your customers face to face often. You attended closings occasionally, and your deals were not packaged and did not come with a bow tied on them and complete and ready to go like it is now. And so, if you were a BDO sitting in, let's say, Louisville, Kentucky, like I am, chances are you're doing deals around this area. Or if you're doing a deal that was referred, what ended up happening is you had to split it with another BDO. So if I originated a loan, let's say in Sam in Birmingham, Alabama, I would have to call Sam and say, hey, man, I've got a deal in your market. You want to, and I had to split it with them. That was the rule.
Right.
And so you either got 50% of something or nothing and nothing.
That's
Today,
right.
you could be sitting in Louisville, Kentucky, get a deal packaged with a bow on it, completely packaged from a referral source based in New York for a loan in California. So we become geographically agnostic completely. And back then, it wasn't that way. And so it was really just, I tell you, so where today we as lenders and originators need to make sure that we're mindful of kind of with the national economy. And we need to be tracking trends toward what's going on, let's say, in this segment. We were much more local back then, and we were much more focused on our own markets. And that is a big difference. And so much of the way you do business and the way you develop relationships, develop those loans, and compensate for those loans has significantly changed.
That's an extremely valid point, John. Extremely valid. That kind of, I don't want to say kept you honest, but that having to share, well, it was good because you had somebody in that local market that could obviously help run point for you, right? And so you got something, and it did keep you concentrated more so, from a selfish perspective. If you wanted 100%, you're going to stay in your local market. And if you got something out, you shared it, and it was okay,
Right.
Something else that may be valuable. If someone had asked me, what advice would you give? And I can't take credit for this, but I heard it from a boss of mine a long time ago, Southern boy. He said, Joe, you can't teach want to. You cannot teach want to. You've got to create the want to in yourself, or it has to be driven by something you see, feel around you. The second thing is you got to be teachable and coachable. You don't know everything. A lot of things you probably need to update, or new things you need to learn. Learn from everybody and everything. And the third thing that's just super duper is the training. You've got to have ongoing training. If a company or a bank or whatever institution you're with would understand this, we'd have better BDOs. Not that we don't have good BDOs, but I'm just saying more informed BDOs faster. Training, ongoing training, not only for the new person, but the ongoing. It's when golfers learn their trade craft every year, every 2 years, they'll go back to their high school or college coach and play golf with them to see what kind of bad habits they've created. Then they fix them and put them back in pro golf. We just don't have enough of the old school.
Joe, you're right. And I think that's really like sales managers shortfall in a way, because the sales managers, the non-producing sales managers, particularly, I mean, they could they have the ability to provide that training. I mean, that should be one of their first and foremost responsibilities, but it tends not to be for some reason. I mean, not for everyone. I don't want to generalize, but um this though is really like, is this a real one? Is this like a real internal magazine, or is this another marketing trick? Okay, this is real.
Yeah,
This is
no. I
amazing.
mean, they would.
Marketing
They.
trick.
I mean, and that's what I'm saying, Ray. I mean, the marketing
Yeah.
department had so much out. They had so much product and so much material that they would produce and mail to you, and it would be both internal that would be mailed, or shipped to you, and then also a whole host of different flyers. And I think that because things did not change as much as I think that they do now. A lot of the materials that you got with respect to like the verticals for veterinarians or doctors or whatever, it was relatively static. So you could use it. It had a really long shelf life. Today, it doesn't seem to have that shelf life. But no, this was definitely a valid publication and was, it was distributed internally. Another thing that I was just sitting there thinking about, I'll add to a comment, is the SBA as a whole. When I think back and look back in the days, let's say in the mid 90s, going to NAGLE meetings, there were maybe 100 people there, maybe 125 people there, maybe less. But in addition to that, the ability to really look into and understand what was coming from SBA and being able to talk to the agency, the relationship was just really different. And what I mean by that, it was not nearly as robust and as close as it is now. And there's a lot of folks within the agency that have become friends that we've known for decades. The ability to have a purview into your entire portfolio, we really didn't have that. The ability to really have input on SOP changes and things like that. I guess what I'm just saying is that just the exchange of information, the strength of the relationship, and really the degree to which SBA became and has become really a very developed language within the finance industry. It was different. It was in its infancy back then, and as the way I see it. And
John's just trying to take the attention off this picture of him right here.
yeah. Look at that. That is
Look
terrible.
at that young man right there.
Hey, at least I'm on the same page as a legend, Dan Rundgren. That guy.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, man, that guy is a rock star.
Talks about how John used to take people up to mountain bike trips. Or no, Dan. That's
Dan did.
Dan did that in Moab. And
Yeah.
so this is the BDO show before the BDO show. This is helping BDOs level up their game. And you can see the rankings right here. And it looks like Lisa Forrest did pretty well for herself. Look at this. Hubby's right here at the top. Look at this. Rankings. Wow. 40 units, 59 units in 1996. What?
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That's incredible. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and that's all handwritten packages too.
Hey, Ray, I'm bringing this topic because I was thinking about like things that are maybe different now than in the past. So I remember like with regard to like whenever we had to do pricing and loan structuring, guys, tell me if you remember, there was some kind of a grid, and would, depending on the loan to value and the industry, it would affect your commission, right? Didn't it have some? I'm trying to remember what all of it, but it was like a very complex grid, and it was per product, I think, too, even maybe per industry. Do y'all remember how that worked? But it was very complicated. But I think the incentive was they were trying to, you would take basically a discount on your commission based upon maybe taking more risk. Does that sound right? Everybody's memories. I feel like there was some kind of loan to value might have had something to do with it. I can't remember all the details, but it was so complicated. But I think the idea was they were trying to encourage us to do, if we were going to take more of a risk, I think we were going to actually have to take a little bit of a hickey on our commission. I don't remember all the detail on it, but it came back to me as we were talking about all this.
Well, my understanding of comp plans today is that, I mean, it's about sharing in the revenue. So it's not tied to risk as much as it's tied to, well, it's tied to the pricing, basically. I think that's what you're saying. But
Yeah. Yeah.
that the comp plans are so, yeah, I mean, they're down to the rate, to the referral fee you're paying, and it changes based on, hey, just sharing in the revenue. But we're gonna start wrapping up here. I just want to ask you guys. So they obviously did this President's Club retreat, so like, did that work? Do you think? I mean, did people actually want to go to this?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. 100%.
What'd they do?
You know, Ray, it's interesting. So what they would say is they set a marker. And I can't remember if they said the top 15 or if they said you had to do a certain volume number. And the benefit of President's Club was obviously you were amongst the elite and you were recognized as being one of the top producers. But also what came along with it, and this was really the best part, is that they would fly you out. And, I think one year we did the Napa Valley. Another year we did the Hill Country in San Antonio. We would do all these great places out in California, et cetera. And you got to go out there for 2 or 3 days and they pampered you and you got a lot of swag. But more importantly, I remember being out at Meadow. I'll never forget this. We were playing cards late one night out at Meadowwood. Sam, I don't know if you were at this one, but we were playing cards late night out at Meadowwood out in Napa Valley in President's Club. And, I think Lilykoff was around, but then Turtletall rolls in about like midnight. He rolls in at like midnight. And we played I'll never forget this, just talking about the business and playing cards and hanging out and drinking wine and having a really good time with the leader of the company one-on-one for several hours, just talking through strategy and learning about that. I mean, that was so invaluable. So it was that intimacy that you got as a result of being a President's Club, as well as the respect that came along with it, that when you hit that level, everyone knew how hard it was. I think that there was this like, wow, this guy knows what he's doing. I think it's a really good thing. And I think it was a great thing back then. It was all part of the culture. The one disadvantage to that, and I'll say the byproduct, the Matrix, the one byproduct of that came out of it. And, I think that I certainly learned this, is that it was great for the originators, and President's Club is great for the BDOs who are successful and do the volume. But what ends up happening is you forget about the operations people and you forget about the credit underwriters and all the team and the support staff and the sales assistants and all of those involved in helping you achieve success. And so, at the end of the day, they did expand that a little bit. So after the first year or two of President's Club, they began to bring in sales assistants. They began to bring in others. But at the end of the day, I think what it was recognized. It was intended to recognize those top performers and really do something special for them. And, I think that's part, and that was unique. And I know there's a lot of companies that still do President's Club today and have leverage off that. But, that was what it was about. And if you were a President's Club BDO, I think you were recognized as being someone who knew what the hell you were doing.
Yeah.
So I showed this picture earlier. This is the last thing I'm going to show here. This is basically, I think, Vince, did you send me this? The golf balls?
Yeah.
Or is that?
It's in my office.
So that's the, what do you call it? The sort of the history of their acquisitions or lineage.
Yeah.
So take me to the 6 months leading up to the sale to First Union. What was the vibe in the company, and then what was the vibe when that sale was announced?
Wow. I kind of felt surprised by it, but I wasn't. I was just I had my head down and I was doing business. And then when it happened, it was kind of like, it was scary because you're like, you don't know, what does this mean? And then there's all the talk internally, which happens with every bank merger, right? And then I recall, I think they came to one of our national meetings. I recall, I think the guy from I can't remember the name of the gentleman, but he might have been the CEO or the president of First Union showed up.
Crutchfield.
Yes.
Crutchfield.
And there was a lot of, rah-rah. And I think I kind of felt like initially it was it didn't hurt us. I kind of felt like I did okay after that initial merger. I think it's when over time, I think, as things started to change and the bank started to incorporate us more, and maybe the Wachovia merger was probably more of the problem, but I can't remember all the detail. But it's just part of the game. But that was my first experience going through that as a banker. But it's bound to happen at least once in your career, if not several times. And I don't know, let you guys, the rest of the guys, y'all put your point of view in, because I'm not the only one.
No, I think you're exactly right. I think initially there was really not a whole lot of really not a lot to it. We had new ownership. You had new. I don't even remember anything. What I do remember is I had money store stock and did okay in the sale, so that was okay. That wound up being okay. Not a ton of it, but I had enough at the time. But that worked out well. But yeah, I don't. Initially, you're exactly right there, Vince. I don't think there was a lot of. I don't remember a lot of angst on my end. In fact, it seemed like it went pretty well for a while. And then as time went on with the Wachovia merger and some of those things that kind of started shaking out, it started feeling more like a bank. At that point, and I say that with respect to banks because I do a lot of work with banks. But it felt more corporate. As the money store felt much less corporate. It felt more, like I said earlier, we were our entrepreneurs in our own, in our own area there, and so we kind of ran our own shop within a big organization, and then the bank started. It changed as First Union, not to a large degree. In fact, I think products, credit wise, seem to be pretty similar for a while. I don't remember a lot of big issues, but then it
sounds like, yeah, I mean, it seems like Money Store had some sort of like a soul to it almost.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah.
I tell you the other thing,
Go ahead, sorry.
Right. It seemed like when it did happen, and maybe it was more so, kind of looking back, I don't really remember who all, but I know we had some people, may have obviously were anxious because we did have people leaving at that time. So it did change the composition of who our colleagues were and who we were with, even though maybe they weren't forced out, as happened, with the Great Recession, of course. But people did start to get anxious and started going to the Hellers and the CITs and the AT&Ts and all these other shops. So
yeah. Ray, I'll give a little bit different perspective just because maybe I had a different purview on this. So at the time of the merger, I guess it was in 99. At that time, I was in regional sales management and running the Midwest region. And so I was still very close with Bamel and Liliakoff and a lot of those guys, and we'll go to Sacramento often. And so I probably had a little bit of perspective, and I know there was beginning some conversations about scaling, and I know that the about scale, and remember, we were part of a much larger organization. It wasn't just the SBA division. So they were running, the second mortgage, the home equity division. They were got that student lending and auto, and so I think that there was a lot of talk about strategy and about growth and size, and it really, I was probably too naive to really know what was going on back then. But there were a lot of meetings, and there were a lot of people sometimes that wouldn't be available, and so going up to it, there was some rhetoric. And then Ed Crutchfield came to a meeting, and everyone called him Fast Eddie, and he said, "Listen, nothing's going to change." And he told us all the wonderful things that we're supposed to hear, and it was fine for a while, as these guys said. But what ended up happening was really, I would say, and I don't remember exactly, but let's just say the 6 months after. So leading up to it, I think everyone was just kind of doing their thing, and maybe there was a little bit of rhetoric, but it wasn't a lot. The first 3 to 4 months were fine, but I got to tell you, we hit that 5 or 6 month mark, and they started changing things, tightening up credit. They started tweaking things in the compensation model. And really, I'll tell you, it was the regional sales managers. And, that's when Dave White and, Chris Hooker was our national sales manager. We're talking to Nancy and a lot of the West Coast folks and Wayne Worth and a lot of these guys. We're talking about it. And everyone was feeling it because they were starting to push it down on us and having us go impose these changes, turning us into more traditional banker style. And so, I think that there was a huge group that left probably after about 6 or 9 months. And then there was a handful that stuck around. But like many mergers, they tell you that nothing's going to change. And then within 6 months, everything changes.
Right. Yeah.
Fellas, Amazing. I'm so glad I got to exhaust all of the different goodies you guys sent me. And so this was, we needed a part 2. So this was it. So I appreciate it. This was a great chapter in, my show. So thank you all for being a part of it.
Yes, thank you, Ray.
Thank you, Ray.
Hey,
Appreciate all
thanks for
you're
putting
doing.
this together. And I'll tell
Thanks,
you, I think
fellas.
you were the catalyst, and we've talked about it, and we're gonna, we're all gonna work on this, and we're gonna put together a Money Store reunion, hopefully face to face, and get everybody together sometime next year. So, that's something on the radar screen, and I've got a tickler to follow up on that. So I just want to say thank you to you, because probably we wouldn't be here and wouldn't be thinking about it had you not initiated this.
That's
so
right.
I really appreciate it.
Well,
That's right.
I have to give
Absolutely.
credit to Vince's post for posting Mad to Make Loans, because that's the real true start to all
Vince,
of this.
thank you.
Good job.
You're
Good
welcome.
job, Vince.
Thanks, man.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
See
Thanks.
y'all.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Good
Bye.
seeing you.
Bye.